She opened her eyes and found herself alone in a train car soaked in red light. The windows were black, no stars, no reflection, no time. Only a single phrase carved into the wall beside her seat. Don't look at car 7. Her name was Emily Dorsey, and the last thing she remembered was boarding the 12:16 train out of Chicago to visit her dying mother in Cincinnati. She had been running late, heart pounding, her suitcase unzipped, phone dead, and tears still drying on her cheeks. And now, this. No conductor, no passengers, no explanation, only the sound of wheels grinding against invisible tracks. She stood up slowly. The train rocked slightly, too smoothly, almost like it was gliding, not moving. She turned back toward her seat and gasped. The message on the wall was gone. In its place, "It's already in car 7. Emily's stomach dropped. She forced herself to breathe. This is a dream, she thought. This is stress, grief, exhaustion. She slid open the door to the next car and stepped through. It was empty, pristine, seats lined up, untouched. She moved forward again, and again, until she reached car 5. Something felt different here. The air was thicker, heavier. Her ears popped as if pressure was changing. The lights flickered above her. "Hello," she called out. Silence. If this is some kind of joke, I'm not in the mood. No answer, but then movement, a figure just at the far end. Slumped over in a seat, Emily rushed forward, relieved for any sign of life. "Excuse me, are you okay?" She stopped mid-sentence. The man's face was completely blank. No eyes, no mouth, no nose, just smooth. Pale skin stretched over a skull, breathing quietly. She stumbled backward, heart thundering. The figure twitched, then turned toward her. Emily ran. Blind panic drove her all the way through car 6. Empty. She reached the sealed door to car 7. The handle was wet, slimy. She yanked her hand back, but the door creaked slightly open on its own. Inside, only darkness. And a whisper. "Don't turn around." Her breath caught in her throat. She hadn't turned, but something behind her had. Emily turned the other way, stepping back into car 6. But now, it wasn't empty. Every seat was filled with passengers, all staring at her, silent, wide-eyed, mouths open. Some of them were crying blood. Emily backed into a corner, heart slamming so loudly she swore it echoed down the walls. "What do you want from me?" The passengers didn't answer, but all in perfect unison raised their hands and pointed behind her. To the door of car 7, she slowly turned. On the door now was a message scratched deep into the glass. "You left her. Now she wants your seat." Emily's knees buckled, her vision swam. No, that's not possible," she whispered, because she knew who her was. 3 years ago, Emily had been pregnant, unplanned, complicated. She and her fiancé, Michael, had fought about it for weeks. She wanted to keep the baby. He didn't. Then, during a late-night train ride, this very route, something happened. A decision. She got off early, alone. She never told anyone, not even her mother, what happened on that train ride, but she lost the baby that night. There was no medical reason, no trauma, just gone. The grief never left. And now, she was back. On the same train, and the train remembered. The lights cut out, total blackness, and in that blackness, footsteps, small, soft, childlike. Emily pressed herself against the wall, whispering prayers she hadn't said since she was a teenager. The door to car 7 groaned open. Something stepped through. Not a girl, not a ghost, a shape, fluid, twitching, thin like smoke but solid like meat. It moved wrong. It ticked as it walked, and it stopped right in front of her. Then it spoke in a voice like knives. "You left me. I found the train back." Emily screamed. She ran blindly through the passengers, but their arms reached out like vines. One caught her wrist. Cold, paper-thin. "Stay. She wants to show you something." She tore free and slammed through the doors of car 8. Then 9. The cars kept going, more than the train should have. Car 10, car 11, each one more warped, seats melting, windows bleeding, sound gone. And finally, she stumbled into a car that looked like a hospital waiting room. Her heart stopped. In the corner sat her mother, frail, coughing, skin gray. "You didn't make it in time," her mother said softly. But she did. Emily turned and saw the child again. But this time she was whole, human, beautiful and crying. Emily's body gave out. She dropped to her knees. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean to leave. I was scared. I was so scared." The girl stared, silent, then pointed to a seat, a tiny child-sized train seat, and written on it, "This was always hers." Emily collapsed into tears. "Please, what do you want?" The lights flickered, and this time it wasn't the child who answered. It was the conductor, a man in a black uniform, eyes hollow, smile stitched shut. He stepped forward, voice low and final. "You made your stop. You just didn't realize it." Emily looked around. All the windows now showed stars, but not stars like Earth's. These were cold, sharp, alien. This wasn't a train. It was a track between regrets. The place people ended up when the things they ran from caught up. And the girl wasn't a ghost. She was a fair, unclaimed, unloved, until now. Emily turned to her daughter, voice cracking. "Can I ride with you?" The girl nodded slowly, and for the first time since that awful night, Emily felt warm. The lights dimmed, and the conductor punched 2 tickets. Somewhere far away, a real train rolled into Cincinnati. Passengers stepped off, luggage in hand. One name wasn't on the list. Emily Dorsey never arrived. Her seat was empty. Her suitcase was found untouched. Her mother died that same evening. But late at night, on cold stretches of forgotten track, some train engineers say they hear it, a second whistle, a train no one sees. And sometimes, if you're waiting alone at the platform, too tired to blink, you'll feel a breeze and the faint sound of a little girl laughing. The man sat perfectly still, staring at the train window as the rain smeared against the glass. Outside, trees, empty fields, the blur of darkness beyond. Inside, silence, except for the rhythmic hum of the wheels and the tick of the overhead light, flickering with no pattern. Colin Myers, 47, divorcee, no kids, ex-army. He was used to solitude, but this was something else, because from the moment he boarded the 10:04 to Portland, he had a feeling this train wasn't going to Portland, and neither was he. It had started with the ticket. He hadn't bought one. It had been delivered in an unmarked envelope at his motel door. The note inside simply read, "Seat 17A, window, face your truth." Colin had laughed it off. He'd been drinking. The last few months had been hell. Dishonorable discharge, a cheating wife, friends gone, meds failing. He'd hit bottom, so why not ride a train to nowhere? He threw on a coat, stuffed the note in his pocket, and followed the directions. Now, sitting in 17A, he began to regret it, because no one else in the train car had moved. Not once, and they were all wrong. He watched them from the corner of his eye. The man directly across from him wore a grey trench coat, perfectly pressed. Mybert sat rigid, staring straight ahead without blinking. A woman 2 rows down was knitting. Nothing. Her needles clicked, but the yarn trailed into the air and vanished, and behind Colin, he swore he could hear breathing, right next to his ear. But the seat was empty. Every time he turned to check, there was no one there. Until he looked forward again and caught something in the window reflection, a face, but not his. This one had no eyes, just a bleeding slit where the mouth should be, and it was smiling. Colin stood up sharply, knocking over his small tray table. No one reacted. The train kept moving. He stumbled toward the next car, gripping the metal handrails. The connecting door wouldn't open. Jammed! He pounded on it. "Hey, is someone working this train? Conductor!" Silence. Then, Behind him, the knitting woman stopped. He turned back. She raised her head, and her face was made of wax, melted. No eyes, no lips, just a vague suggestion of where a mouth should be. And from it, she rasped, "Face your truth." Colin bolted back to his seat. The note in his pocket felt hot. He pulled it out. The message had changed. Now it read, "We all get one final ride. Yours starts now." Then, in smaller script below, "Look out the window. The moment is coming." His blood ran cold. He turned slowly to the window. Outside, the train was no longer in the woods. It was riding through a desert. Endless, pale, glowing sand, and a sky with no stars, just one enormous moon, cracked and bleeding light. This wasn't Earth. Suddenly, the lights in the cabin cut out. Dark, except for the glow of that moon pouring through the windows, and a whisper, soft but close. She knew, and she jumped anyway. Colin froze. That voice, his wife's. "No," he muttered. "No, this isn't real." But it was, because in the next second, the door at the front of the car creaked open, and she stepped through. Alison, looking just as she had the last time he saw her. In the bathtub, wrist slit, eyes open. She walked slowly, barefoot, her white dress soaked and dripping onto the train floor. "You left me in that house," she said. Colin stood up, heart pounding in his chest. "I tried to call you. I came back. You didn't pick up. I screamed for you," she whispered. "You were watching TV." He backed away. "I didn't know. You weren't talking to me. You didn't want to know," she said, louder now. "You wanted out. You wanted to be free. And I gave you that. I gave you everything." Her face began to split at the mouth, too wide, too torn. Her eyes bled black. "And now I've come to return the favor." Colin turned and ran. But the train car stretched. There was no door, just more seats, and the figures around him started to rise, all of them eyeless, soulless. People he once knew. His father, his commanding officer, his best friend from the unit. Unit who died on his last mission. All of them walked toward him, arms raised, whispering, "Your turn, your turn, your turn." Colin dropped to his knees, screaming. Then silence. He was back in his seat. No one around, no blood, no voices, just the train, still moving, and the conductor now standing beside him, face hidden by shadows, voice like rusted iron. "You chose not to jump that day, but she did, and now you ride until you face the truth." Colin looked at the window. Outside, now there was a scene playing. Not a desert, not a city, his house. That night, he watched himself sitting on the couch, headphones on. In the bathroom, Alison crying. He watched himself ignore the vibration of his phone, watched the water rise, watched the blood spread across the tile. He screamed and punched the glass, trying to break it. The image vanished. Now the window showed only a sign, quickly approaching. Final stop, regret. The conductor handed him a mirror. "Look at your seat." Colin looked down. The cushion was torn, stuffing soaked in blood. Nails scattered across the floor and carved deep into the floorboards. "You were the reason." Colin collapsed forward, sobbing, choking. "I'm sorry, I didn't know." But the whisper came again, not from Alison this time, from inside him. "You always knew. You just didn't care enough." The train slowed. The lights dimmed. A bell rang, and the conductor spoke softly. "This is your last chance. Face it, or ride forever." Colin wiped his eyes, stood slowly, and turned back toward the car behind him. He walked, trembling, opened the door, and stepped into car 18. It was completely empty, except for one thing: a bathtub, filled, still, and waiting. He walked over, heart in his throat, and knelt beside it. Inside, nothing but water. Then the lights above him began to flicker and the water rippled. He looked down and saw himself, younger, happier, crueler, and Alison behind him begging not to be left alone. He watched himself walk away, not just once, but dozens of times. Different days, different fights, each one building toward the night she died. Colin finally screamed, "Take me instead!" The water surged upward, wrapped around his arms, pulled him in, and everything went black. The next morning, train security at Portland Station found an unmarked carriage sitting alone on the furthest track. Inside was a single empty seat, 17A. It soaked through, the window fogged, and on it scratched from the inside. I finally faced it. The train pulled into Wolfston Station 2 minutes past midnight. It wasn't on the map, it wasn't supposed to exist. And no one ever got off, except tonight. Someone got on. A girl, mid-20s, pale, shivering, clutching a small leather suitcase. Like it held her last breath. Her name was Marina Kellis, and this train was her only chance at escape, or so she thought. She collapsed into seat 9C, halfway down the car. The lights above flickered, humming quietly. Only 5 others in the cabin, all sleeping or pretending to. She kept her eyes low. Her mind was racing. The man from the hospital, the phone call, the photo she received just before boarding. Her older sister, Grace, lying on the autopsy table, face wrong, almost like it had been stitched back on. They told me she was in a car accident, Marina thought. But that wasn't a car. That was something else. She reached into her coat and pulled out the crumpled photo. On the back, someone had written, "She never left the train." Marina had no plan, no backup. Just her sister's journal, stolen from the hospital locker, and a name scratched into the final page. Midnight line. Car 9, don't sleep. So here she was. Car 9. Midnight. Awake. But the longer she sat, the more the air shifted. The windows fogged unnaturally. The passengers didn't move, and the seat across from her was still warm, as if someone had just been there. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. No signal, no Wi-Fi. Just a message from unknown. Subject, "Your next," attached a live photo of herself, taken from the other side of the train. She looked up instantly. No one had a phone out. Everyone was still slumped, eyes closed. A chill ran down her spine. "Grace, what did you get into?" she whispered. Then the train lights went out for exactly 7 seconds. When they came back on, one of the sleeping passengers was gone. Just a coat remained on the seat, and a trail of wet footprints leading into the restroom. Marina stood, heart pounding. She approached the bathroom door slowly, every step echoing. She knocked. "Hello? Are you okay?" No answer. She reached for the handle. It turned on its own. Inside, darkness, wet floor, and a single bloody handprint on the mirror, too high for any average person to reach. She stepped back. The door slammed shut. From inside came a voice that sounded exactly like Grace. "You came too late. You always come too late." Marina stumbled back to her seat, shaking. The train lurched forward, picking up speed, and the speaker crackled. "Next stop, the Hollow Mile. Please remain in your seat." That name. She knew that name. She pulled out Grace's journal, flipping through the fragile pages, and there it was, a frantic entry, half torn. "The Hollow Mile is where they come for you. Don't look outside, don't blink, don't fall asleep. The conductor is not human." Marina looked toward the front of the train. The conductor's booth was dark, no movement inside. But her eyes caught something else. A figure, standing at the end of the aisle, dressed in an old-fashioned conductor's uniform, face hidden by shadow, long, bony fingers holding a single ticket. He began to walk toward her. Click, click, click. His boots echoed like thunder down the aisle. Marina froze. The other passengers still weren't moving, still asleep. She tried to pretend too, closing her eyes. Click, click. The footsteps stopped in front of her. She felt warm breath near her face, and then a paper slipped into her lap. She opened one eye. A ticket, but not hers. It was Grace's. It had a time stamped on it, 12:44 a.m. That was 3 minutes from now, what happens at 12:44? She turned to ask the woman behind her, but her seat was empty, another gone, only 4 left, and all the windows had turned black. Not night black, void black, like they weren't showing anything anymore. Marina gripped the journal. Grace, what were you trying to stop? Then she saw the last page. It hadn't been blank before. Now it had writing, appearing as if ink were bleeding through. To leave the train, you must give it a soul. Below that, a name appeared. Marina Kellis. Then it was scratched out and replaced with unknown. She looked around. Another seat empty. Only 2 passengers remained besides her. An old man with glassy eyes. And a child, alone, asleep, clutching a toy rabbit. The conductor was gone, but the train kept moving. Faster. Outside she could see something now. Flickers of faces pressing against the windows, screaming without sound. Some of them looked like her, or versions of her. Broken, burned, disfigured, like they'd lived through the crash Grace was supposed to die in. The speaker crackled again. Final approach, the hollow mile. The lights dimmed, and the child woke up. His eyes were white, no pupils, no iris, just white. He turned to her and said calmly, "You were never supposed to come back. Now someone has to stay." Then he disappeared. His toy rabbit fell to the floor. No sound, no scream, just gone. Now only Marina and the old man remained. She rushed to the conductor's booth. It opened easily. Inside, no controls, just walls covered. In photographs, passengers from other nights, other decades, and in the middle, a picture of Grace. Eyes closed, mouth stitched, but something was wrong. There was a note pinned to her chest in the photo. She leaned closer. The photo moved, and Grace's mouth opened. She whispered, "Push him." Marina turned. The old man was behind her now, face blank, eyes milky, but smiling. "They told me it would only take one more, then I could go. I've been on this train for 61 years. He stepped forward. You can take my place." She backed away, but the old man lunged. They crashed into the wall. Her head hit metal. He pinned her arms. "Give it time," he muttered. "The train will eat you unless you make a deal." "What deal?" she gasped. "Give it another soul." She looked over and saw the mirror in the conductor's booth. Her reflection was Grace. She wasn't seeing herself. She was seeing the sister she failed. And Grace was crying, not of sadness, but pleading. Marina knew. This wasn't about survival anymore. This was about ending it. She kneed the old man, grabbed a broken glass shard from the floor, and drove it into his chest. He didn't bleed. He just shattered, like porcelain. And from within, a black mist poured out, screaming. The train screeched, the lights exploded, and everything went white. When Marina woke, she was lying on the gravel beside the tracks. The train was gone. So was the station. In her hand, she clutched Grace's journal. The last page had changed. Again. Now it read, she chose to face it, and taped below it was her own ticket, burned around the edges. Back in the city, police would find surveillance footage of Marina boarding the train, but no record of the train ever stopping there. No record of a midnight line, no conductor, no crash. But Marina knew better, because every night after that, she heard it. The distant hum, the screech of metal on tracks, the click of boots in a dark hallway. And every night, her phone buzzed once, always at 12:44 a.m. The train to Cedar Line Station was only half full. Rain hammered the windows. Lightning snapped across the sky. Lena Morrissey sat in car 7, staring blankly out the window. Her hands trembled. Not from fear, from what she had just done. In her purse was a blood-stained photo, her ex-fiancé Darren tied to a chair. Mouth gagged, eyes wide in terror. On the back, in shaky handwriting, "You were never supposed to know." Lena had found it this morning inside a safety deposit box Darren had kept hidden for 3 years. He was dead now. A boating accident, they said. But this picture, it was recent, and he wasn't on a boat. She was headed to the one place the photo mentioned, Cedar Line, a remote town that didn't appear on Google Maps. The image had coordinates etched at the bottom, and when she searched them, the train line lit up, but now that she was on it, something felt wrong. Each window had been painted over in black. No conductor announcements, no service, and worst of all, she was the only one in her car. A sharp thump made her jump. She turned to see a man seated across the aisle, tall, pale, wearing a long black coat, even though it was warm inside. His eyes were cloudy, his hands too, clean, and on his shoulder sat a single black crow. Lena stared. She hadn't seen him board, and something in her stomach told her he didn't. "You're not supposed to see them," he said softly, stroking the bird. "Excuse me?" she whispered. "The truth," he clarified. "You weren't supposed to see the truth." Lena clutched her bag tighter. "I'm just going to Cedar Line." "No one just goes to Cedar Line," he said, standing. The crow fluttered off his shoulder. Circling above them, the train lights flickered. The man stepped closer. "You opened a door," he said. "When you looked into that box, it was a safety deposit box. It was his lockbox. He tried to hide it from them. From me." Lena stood quickly, heart pounding. "Who the hell are you?" He leaned in and smiled. "I'm the one who collects what's owed." She rushed down the aisle. The next car's door was locked. She spun around. The man was gone. So was the crow, but her bag was open now, and inside, the photo had changed. Now it showed her, tied to the chair, eyes wide, mouth gagged. Lightning flashed. The crow screeched above her head and vanished into the ceiling. Lena stumbled into the next car. This one was full, but the passengers weren't moving, eyes wide open, breathing shallow, staring straight ahead like mannequins made of flesh. A baby sat silently on its mother's lap, eyes milky white. At the back of the car, a glowing exit sign blinked. But when she approached, the door behind it opened, not to another train car, but to a hospital room. Her breath caught in her throat. That room, she remembered it from the day Darren died. He told her he was leaving for a weekend trip, but she followed his phone's location and ended up at St. Ashmere Psychiatric, deep in the countryside. They told her he was never admitted. But here, on this train, was the very room, and inside a chair, tied to it Darren. "Lena," he gasped, "please, you have to go back. This train, it doesn't stop." She stepped forward, tears rising. "They told me you were dead. They lied," he coughed, "to keep you away. You weren't supposed to find out what I saw." She stepped closer, sobbing, then froze, because standing behind Darren was the man with the crow. He held a needle. "He made a deal," the man said, eyes gleaming. "A soul for silence." "No," Darren wheezed. "I changed my mind." "Too late," the man hissed. He jabbed the needle into Darren's neck. His body twitched, then slumped. "Gone." Lena screamed. The room vanished. She was back on the train, collapsed on the floor of the silent car. The mannequin passengers still stared blankly forward, but now they had her face, each of them, identical versions of Lena, one crying, one screaming, one with her mouth stitched shut. She ran, desperately, back toward her car, only it wasn't there anymore, just darkness and crows, hundreds of them. Then, a voice, familiar, soft, Marina. "If you're hearing this, it means you got on the wrong train, just like me. There's still a way out, but you'll have to pay something." The voice echoed around her. Then the floor opened beneath her feet, and she was falling. Down, 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 into a long hallway of black and white film strips playing on endless loops. One showed her as a child. One showed Darren watching her from outside her apartment. Another showed herself climbing aboard this train, her eyes empty, and the last one showed her dying, strapped to a bed, doctors whispering over her. Heart stopped at 12:44 a.m. She jolted awake. She was back in her seat. The rain was gone. So was the man, the crow, the blood, everything. Outside, the train was pulling into a station, but it wasn't Cedar Line. It was a glowing, glass-walled building with no name. Dozens of passengers stood waiting, all of them identical. Each one looked just like Grace. Lena stood, slowly. The door opened. She stepped onto the platform. She turned back and saw herself still sitting in the seat, eyes open, mouth shut, a crow perched on her shoulder. The train door closed and sped away. She was left in silence. No one spoke at this station. Everyone walked in unison toward the white-lit corridor. At the far end, a figure waited, a woman, Marina, smiling, holding a journal. "Welcome," she said. "You made it." Lena blinked. "Where am I?" "The final stop. For now. What is this place?" Marina looked at the crowd behind her. "It's where we go when we've seen too much, when the train doesn't know what to do with us." "Can we leave?" Marina shook her head, then smiled again. "But we can stop others from getting on." The only thing louder than the train's engine was David's breathing. He sat near the emergency window, clutching the armrest so tightly that his knuckles had gone pale. His fingers trembled not from fear, but from recognition. He'd been here before, 12 years ago, on this same train. Only that trip ended with a crash, a disaster that killed 19 people. David had been the only survivor, or so he thought. Now the digital display read, "Final destination, unknown." And across the aisle, a little girl stared at him. She looked like his daughter, only he didn't have children, or did he? A steward walked by. Not a man, not a woman either. Just a tall figure dressed in black, face obscured behind a reflective mask. David stood. "Hey, sorry, is this train headed to Cedar Line?" The steward paused, turned its head slowly. It now," it said, voice hollow. David frowned. "What do you mean?" But the steward kept walking. David sat back down. His mind raced. He hadn't boarded this train by accident. 2 nights ago, a stranger handed him a ticket at a gas station outside. "Detroit. You've been running long enough," the man whispered. "It's time you remembered." He tried to throw it away, but it kept reappearing in his wallet every morning, every hour, until this morning, when he finally gave up and boarded the 7:45 a.m. from St. Glenn's station. Now, looking out the window, all he could see was black. The girl across the aisle was still staring. She wore a red dress, dirty white socks. She looked familiar. Too familiar. "Do I know you?" he asked. She smiled. "You used to." "What's your name?" "Claire." David blinked. "That name. Why did it hurt to hear? How old are you?" 7. "Where? Are your parents?" "You are," she said simply. David stood again, heart thudding. This had to be a hallucination. He headed down the train car, glancing at the faces around him. All the passengers were unnaturally still. One read a newspaper, upside down. Another held a phone, but the screen was just static. One woman was drinking from an empty cup over and over again. He turned into the next car and froze. It was full of empty train seats, floating in midair, suspended by nothing. No floor, no ceiling, just an endless gray void. "Turn back," said a voice. He whipped around. Marina, her figure flickered like a dying TV screen. "You're not supposed to be here yet," she whispered. "What is this place?" he demanded. "What train is this?" "It's a holding place," she said, "for the in-between." Between what? Truth and consequence. David looked past her, deeper into the grey car. A door stood at the far end, old, wooden, carved with symbols. "What's through there?" Marina's face turned serious. "Answers, but if you open it, you won't come back the same." "I need to know," he said, moving past her. "David, wait." Too late. He opened the door. Inside was a small kitchen, a calendar on the fridge. Read March 2009. He stepped in. The smell hit him. Burnt toast, lemon cleaner. Then the sounds, a child giggling, a woman humming. David's eyes widened. He walked through the kitchen and into the hallway. A woman was crouched in a bedroom, helping. A little girl into a red dress. "Claire," she said gently, "go show Daddy." The girl ran toward the door, stopped, looked directly at David. "You left us," she whispered. The walls flickered, and suddenly, fire engulfed everything. Screams echoed. David dropped to his knees. No, this isn't real." He looked up. The kitchen was gone. He was back in the void. Marina stood silently at the edge. "You did forget, didn't you?" she said sadly. "The accident, the crash, your wife, your daughter." David couldn't speak. Memories crashed over him like waves. He'd been drinking that night, angry. Claire had spilled juice on his documents. He got into the car anyway, and he drove off the bridge. Only he had lived, or so he thought. "You never got off the train," Marina said. "You boarded it when you died. You've been riding it ever since." David backed away. "No, that's not possible. That man who gave you the ticket," she continued, "he was trying to give you one more chance, a choice. Face the truth, or stay on the loop. Forever." He ran back through the floating car, past the mannequin passengers, back to the seat with the girl in red. But she was gone now. In her place was a mirror. He looked in. His reflection was smiling, but he wasn't. The train jolted, lights flickered, the intercom crackled. Final stop, Consequence Station. David looked around. The other passengers were slowly standing. Each one looked at him as they passed. Their eyes, hollow souls stuck in motion. As the train slowed, fog swirled outside. He stepped to the door and hesitated. "You can still go back," said Marina, standing behind him, "if you leave something behind." "What?" She handed him a silver key. "Your guilt. That's not something I can just—" "You can," she said, "but it means forgetting her, all of it. Claire, your wife, the memories, the pain. And if I keep them, you stay forever." David closed his eyes, thought of Claire's laugh, her dress, his wife's smile as she folded laundry with one sock on. He opened his eyes. "I'm not ready to forget them." Marina nodded. "Then you'll stay with us." "Us?" She stepped back, revealing the passengers watching silently, and among them, Claire, smiling, reaching for his hand. "Come on, Daddy," she said. "It's not so bad here." He stepped off the train, into the fog, and the train pulled away. Inside, his seat was now empty, except for one thing, a crumpled photo of a man holding a little girl, both smiling. Behind them, a train blurred by. Lena didn't remember boarding the train. She only remembered the cold, and the ticket tucked into her coat pocket, though she never bought one. She was supposed to be dead, overdose, bathtub, silence. That was 3 hours ago. Now she sat in a blood-red seat, alone in a train car, where none of the windows showed anything at all. No trees, no towns, just shadows that moved, even when the train stood still, and across from her sat a man with no eyes, just black sockets. He held a book upside down and whispered words in reverse. When she moved, so did he. She didn't scream. She'd done enough of that in life. She simply stood and walked toward the next car. The sliding door moaned as it opened, and there, standing in the aisle, was a boy. No older than 10. He held a lollipop in one hand, a shard of glass in the other. He was bleeding from his chest and from his wrists. He smiled anyway. "You look sad," he said. "You look dead," she replied. He tilted his head. "Aren't we all?" Lena moved past him, one car after another, each more wrong than the last. One was filled with passengers sewn together at the arms. Another had people frozen in place, like wax figures. In one car there was nothing but screams, invisible mouths, echoes of regret. Then silence, until she reached the front car. The conductor's door, carved with symbols older than any language she knew, and a plaque, "No passengers beyond this point." She pushed it open anyway. The room was circular, lit by a single lantern that swung with the train's movement. In the center sat a massive figure, 7 feet tall, no face, only a void where a head should be, and around its neck 1,000 keys. One for every soul, it seemed. You shouldn't be here, it said in a voice that sounded like 1,000 whispers layered together. I didn't ask to be here, she replied. No one does. Lena stepped forward. I want off this train. You're already off, the conductor said. You never made it, but I'm here. That's because your soul chose to wander. The conductor stood now, and behind him, Lena saw something. Gee! Wall of mirrors. Each reflected a version of her. This one was still in rehab. One was in a coffin. One was dancing. One was smiling. And one had never been born. What is this place? She asked. A junction, the conductor said. Between grief and awakening. Am I dead? No. But you were trying to be. Lena looked down. Her arms were clean. No scars. She wasn't wearing what she died in. Then I can go back. Not without facing yourself. The mirrors shifted. Now her greatest shame played out before her, leaving her brother to die in. The fire. Cheating her best friend. The baby she aborted in secret. The overdose. The letter she never left behind. Each reflection whispered something cruel, until one voice, her own, said, maybe you never deserved a second chance. She fell to her knees. Then why bring me here? The conductor knelt. Its head was still a void, but now she saw light inside it. Because you're still breathing. Suddenly a door appeared behind the conductor, wooden old marked with a burning heart. The conductor reached into its necklace of keys and pulled one glowing gold. Every soul gets one key, it said. But the door won't open unless you want to live. I don't know if I do, Lena whispered. Then the train keeps moving, and if I go through that door, you'll wake up in pain, in regret, but alive. Lena stared at the door. She remembered her mother's voice, her best friend's hug, the time she held a dying dog in the rain and cried harder than she had for herself. She stood and walked to the door. I want to try, she said. The conductor placed the key in her hand, then open it. She did. The sound of the train vanished, the cold disappeared, and she gasped awake. In a hospital bed, alone. V's in her arm. A nurse screamed for help. Lena had a heartbeat again. 1 year later, she walked along the abandoned train tracks behind her house. She left a single white flower near the rusted rails. Thank you, she whispered. In her pocket was the key, still warm. The end.